Hello, everyone, and welcome to a live match reaction show on Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzie, and I'm your host for this evening. What a game that ended up being tonight! Of course, a lot of build up in regards to know Newcastle's dissatisfaction about us trying to sign one of their star strikers, but in the end, it lived up to the bill. It was definitely a very intense game. The atmosphere was definitely a tough one for the players to work under pressure, but in the end, Liverpool were victorious, and it came from one of our star boys in Rio Ngumoha. So let's talk about the game in more detail, and then we'll do a player ratings. And if you'd like to call in, there is a link pinned in the live chat, so feel free to hit that link, and I will get you on towards the end of the show. So let's start with that. Look at that moment there. But before that, let's talk about potential chances that Newcastle created. So the game was started in very intense kind of manner. Newcastle were at it from the first minute. They were not messing around one bit. They were playing 120 miles per hour. That was literally the speed there. Liverpool just couldn't get a grip of the game. Um, Forget controlling the midfield. We just couldn't get hold of the ball at times. So they were definitely on one. Um, Gordon was definitely one of their focal points in that team. He had a great chance with a header. It was probably around the half an hour mark where he produced this moment. Just went over the bar. For me, he should have scored. It was a great opportunity. He had Kirkes, challenging behind him. Didn't really like a challenge that much, to be honest with you. But for me, should have hit the target, should have scored there. He did have a second battle of cherry moments later, where he produced a sliding effort towards goal, but Szoboszlai made a fantastic block to deny the Newcastle winger. But Liverpool got the goal, and it came through Gravenberg. Of course, Gravenberg celebrating the birth of his child in the last few days, so he's had a great week. But then he returns to the lineup, and we noticed his difference in terms of what he brings to the table. But he has these rare moments where he gets onto a score sheet, and today was one of them. In this moment, he grabs the ball from the edge of the box, tries to find people around him, but couldn't really find a clear-cut pass. So then he took it upon his own to find half a yard and hit a shot from the edge of the box. He ends up hitting it low towards the near post and in. Great finish in the end from the Dutchman. At that time, Liverpool were hardly troubling the goalkeeper. Nick Pope was a spectator for most parts of the first half. But this is the beauty of football. You don't need to have possession of the ball all the time for you to have an effect on the scoreline. Newcastle had most of the possession and controlled the game. Let's not beat around the bush. But I said this on my watch along. It only takes a moment of brilliance to break the deadlock. For all that aggression and energy shown by Newcastle, they didn't really have nothing to show for it in the end because there was no goals at the end of it. That's what I was saying in the watch along. Just because Liverpool aren't playing to their level, it doesn't mean that Liverpool are rubbish and they're not going to win the game. Sometimes in football you have to be patient. You have to just read the room. Where this wasn't a game where both teams are going to play attractive football. Newcastle fans are definitely frustrated in terms of what's happening in the transfer market, and that is reflected from the fan base. But also, I've heard comments from the players in recent days, and they said, "Oh, we're really up for this, and we're doing it for the fans." So they had that chip on their shoulder throughout the whole game, even though it shouldn't be the case because these are professional players that we're talking about. But they took upon that stride to represent their fan base, and that's what happened in the end. So for me, it was one of those moments where it was a it was a show of quality where sometimes when it's not going your way, you just need to stay focused, and one moment of effectiveness, can impact the game. And then moments later, there was I don't know, maybe if I'm looking into it a bit too much, Dan Burn, who was getting into fights with literally everyone on the pitch, um, had some afters for Chiesa towards the end of the game as well. Fouls Mohamed Salah twice, not once, twice in a space of 10 seconds, and he gets the yellow card for the second challenge. Now, could that have been a red card? Because I have seen in the past where if someone's produced two fouls in a spur of a moment, the referee can kind of book them and do that. Of course, it's slightly far fetched, but count himself lucky because there was two bad tackles in that moment. Could easily been a red card, but we'll give the referee the benefit of the doubt that he did get the yellow card in the end. But someone that didn't get a yellow card in the end was Anthony Gordon. Now, as you can see on the screen, that is the aftermath of what happened to Virgil van Dijk. It wasn't just a block, which I initially thought when Gordon produced that moment there. It was a dirty tackle from behind. I think the angles that they were showing us on the TV, it just looked like he came sliding in and was committed by using his whole body to make the block. Once they, switched the angles around, what we could see was quite visible, where he came studs in first. His socks were literally rolled up just below his knees. He went all the way down to his ankles, as you can see on the screen, because of the impact of that tackle. And it was high. It was literally just below his knee, and he pretty much started him straight away. So for me, absolutely the right decision, and I don't think Newcastle fans can have any arguments there unless they're very biased. But for me, a clear foul, a clear red card. From Anthony Gordon's point of view, of course, a bit of a shame because he was probably one of their best players at the time. But when you make those kind of challenges, unfortunately, you have to face the punishment. And for me, it was the right decision to send him off. So that was pretty much the first half. Second half, I literally just sat down whilst I was doing the watch along, grabbed myself a drink, and then 20 seconds later, Liverpool were 2-0 up. Great goal from Ekitike. Gakpo provided the assist. Of course, it's not a glorious assist, but of course, he provided the ball on the plate for Ekitike. And once he found that space in front of goal, for me, there was always going to be one winner. Despite how tall Nick Pope is, he was nowhere near this effort. Literally hit him with real power, posting in, no chance for Nick Pope, producing a theatrical low dive there, nowhere near the ball whatsoever. For me, a fantastic finish. And look, Ekitika's on the roll. And one thing we have to say as well, fair play to Ekitike. He was getting booed for every touch that he produced this should I say? I was gonna say last night. It's last night, it's past midnight now. Because Newcastle fans have got a bit of a hump because they thought that he was their player. Never really was. If you know the story where Liverpool have been on a hunt for Ekitike since January. So he's always a player that has been one of our prime targets. Just because he was linked with Newcastle doesn't mean he was destined to be a Newcastle player. But he took it on his stride. And look, the pressure didn't affect him. He played his game today. I thought he was very effective, controlled the ball very good level. And yeah, showcases all round ability very, very well to me. So for me, fantastic performance yet again from Ekitike. 3 goals. So he's clearly on a roll right now. And he scored the goal so quickly that Arne missed it. So he had to watch it on replay after the game. And you know what's funny about this whole build up is that Newcastle fans were like, "Oh, you Liverpool players need to be worried. We've got the likes of Tonali, we've got Joe Linton, Gomes." Well, Tonali dislocated his shoulder because he kept on shoving Ekitike. In the end, he had to leave the pitch. Joe Linton, the big bad wolf, as some would like to refer to, what happened to him? All this hype that, we should be quaking in our boots, shiver me timbers, like people need to jog on. He did nothing in this game. And in the end, the guy fell to ground from a shoulder to shoulder challenge from Gravenberg. God knows what happened. Looked like he injured himself. So for me, if that's what you call a real warrior, I don't want that sort of player in my team. But in terms of Bruno Gomes, he was the one that stepped up and he was very emotional throughout the whole game. But he helped his team to some extent and got the opening goal. I have to be honest, let's speak from a Liverpool's point of view. Poor defending from Kirkis. Honestly, what on earth was he doing? Bending over to give Guimaraes a step or a boost to leap in the air and hit the ball down. Poor defending. And he has been suspect in the last couple of games. Obviously, I'm not completely dismissing the player, but he definitely needs to improve because he's not been a great showing since he's joined Liverpool. And might sound a bit harsh. I have to question the position of Allison because when that goal happened, he tried to make the save behind the line. So had he been positioned better where he was in front of the line, maybe he would have been able to save it because he did get a hand onto it, but I think his position let him down. So maybe slightly harsh, but I do feel like Allison could have done better there. Maybe because I've got huge expectations of Allison that I expect him to save pretty much everything. But for me, Kirkers was definitely at fault. Poor defending from his side. And then Newcastle got the equalizer through Osula, who I regarded as Baby Harlem because that's what some fans referred to him when he joined Newcastle last year. He applies the faintest of touches to bring the score level. Now let's talk about Liverpool's defending. Ah, poor defending yet again from Konate, who allows the ball to bounce over him very easily. Gravenberch for me could have done better, could have been marking the player a bit tighter, but fair play to the striker. He took advantage and applied the finish just underneath Allison to bring the score level. And I said this during my watch on who needs Isak? Newcastle seem to have the talisman right there. So the best thing for them to do is, put Isak out of his misery and just let him join Liverpool. He's not going to do anything with us, is he? But I'll be joking. Jokes aside, overall, it was a very intense game. And look, there was a lot of injuries, a lot of time wasting happening. And then surprisingly, Arne brought on Rio Ngumoha. We've been saying that, he's been on the bench, but when is he gonna get his moment? Still 16 years of age. He's got a few more days until he turns 17. But boy, did he make an impact. His first involvement was he went up against Livramento. Was it Livramento? I think it was, yeah. He had like two, three players around him, and he just looked like he was at home. He didn't look like he was overruled by the occasion. He was very much on it. Like he was aggressive, took his man on, and for me, I just felt like what, he's gonna have an impact. I didn't think he'd go on and score the winner, but the winner itself, what a goal it was! Great team play. Salah producing the through ball, and Szoboszlai, he was phenomenal today. Showed great awareness, dummied the ball, and the ball was applied to Rio Ngumoha. Acres of space, but even that sort of situation, we have seen players fumble. And look, he's 16 years away, first game in a very hostile environment at St. James's Park. And what did he do? He smashed it right in the corner to give Liverpool the win. This was on I think, the 100th minute because we had 11 minutes of stoppage time. And yeah, what a proud moment for the young boy there. 16 years of age, great moment for him and his family. Scores the winner and pretty much announced himself to the world. If you don't know him, now you know because he is that guy. He is Starboy Rio. So overall, a great game. It wasn't a great game in terms of spectacle, in terms of beautiful football being played, but it showed the elements of English football where it's not all about playing tiki taka football. Sometimes it has to be nitty and gritty. It had elements of Sunday league football. It's physical. There was a lot of battles all over the pitch, and it's the core of English football. It's the bread and butter. So for me, good game to watch, intense, and sometimes I kind of enjoy those sort of games because as a fan, you get a bit more involved. You're a bit more emotional. I definitely said a few French words during the watch along. So yeah, it was a great game. And look, some fans will say we were lucky to get the winner, but sometimes you have to produce your own luck. And that's what Liverpool did in this moment. Two games in a row, we've trailed from 2-0 down. And last week we won 4-2. Today we won 3-2. This is not good enough. This is something that needs to be rectified by Liverpool, in the near future. But on paper, 2 wins out of two, you can't complain. And we haven't played well, so that's a very positive way to look at it, where we've not played well, but we still, won the game. And Newcastle fans, I've seen a few comments online that you always get a few, shameless people online. But what I will say from a neutral point of view, I think they produced a great game today. They were on it. I feel like they were a little bit too emotional at times, and I think that cost them in the end. Of course, the red card had the huge impact. It was a defining moment of the whole game. But you have to give them credit in the second half. It felt like at times we had 10 men and they had 11 because they were so aggressive and so on it when it came to their pressing and working as a collective. So you got to give them credit. But I feel like Liverpool showed their quality in the end. We showed everyone why we're champions. These are performances of champions where you don't play your best, but in the end you get the result, and that's what counts. Especially, I know it's only 2 games in, but we've got rival fans that are looking at us, thinking, you must win the league and all that sort of stuff. Even though another team is pretty much winning the transfer window now, buying all these players left, right, and center. But that's probably another discussion for another day. But look, overall, 2 wins out of two. Definitely rooms of improvement from a defensive point of view. But we have to look at the positives. And, we're slowly, getting there. And of course, today we had to produce a performance where we didn't have a fully fit squad. Of course, I'm talking about one area which is right back. But when they've got flying wingers, it could have been a sticky point for us. But thankfully, that wasn't the case, and today Liverpool were victorious. So yeah, great moment for the Liverpool fan base, but of course for this young kid as well, Rio Ngumoha, who scores his first goal in a Liverpool shirt in professional football as well. So yeah, what a proud moment for the young kid. I don't know if you can notice, I've got a shirt that says Starboy Rio on that on the is it this way? This way if you point that way, yeah, right at the end, at Ozwrld.co.uk. So I had this designed ready about 2, 3 weeks ago. I wasn't planning on launching until after the window closed, just because I thought I'll try and produce all my designs in one go. This was in the back end for quite some time, but after today's moment, I thought it's only right, to put this out there for the world to buy. So if you'd like to buy one, just go over to Ozwrld.co.uk. I will be adding a link in in the description as well. Um, because yeah, for me, this boy is very, very special, very talented. Feel like he's fast tracked his inclusion to the team quicker than planned. I would say. Whether he's going to play week in, week out, I don't think he's quite ready for that. I think he'll be a great option off the bench and have an impact like he did today. I still feel like the club need to address 2, 3 areas of the squad before the window closes, but I'm sure we'll have that discussion later this week. Now, let's go through some of the comments here. From Ozzie Kevin says Rio indeed. What a goal from him. And it's a star boy, Ozzie. What a star. Yep, he is a star. Looks like we've got, yeah, we've got a name that a lot of people will not forget now. And we could have a world beer in our hands. So yeah, of course, some fans would play, oh, you guys are being a bit premature, but we've seen him for pre-season. I've watched him, playing for London 23s last season as well. He looks special. So yeah, let's see, how his career unfolds. But right now, what a start for the young kid there. And it was like I said, Geordie fans saying never a red. Then what is if that's not a red? Ola Kabak saying Geordie's moaning that Granberg tackle on Bruno in the first half was the exact same as the tackle, Gordon tackle on Van Dijk. Behave yourselves. Honestly, sometimes you have to be honest. You can't just be overly biased when it comes to these sort of opinions. Yeah, for me, that is utter nonsense. It's not even the same playing field. But if that's your opinion. That's your opinion. We've got Costelicious. He says hello. He said Liverpool didn't deserve to win at all. I'm a Liverpool fan. Um, in terms of how the game was presented, yeah, of course, we didn't play our best football, but we were 2-0 up in the second half. So unfortunately, I have to be honest, it is from our own downfall that we allowed it to go to 2-2. It took a moment of brilliance from a young kid in Rio Ngumoha to score the winner. But in reality, it's our own downfall. We're making errors individually, I would say, in our team. We're, making costly mistakes where last week we were 2 up against Bournemouth. Like we're playing good football, but it's just that these little individual errors are costing us quite heavily right now. And unfortunately, it's 1 or 2 players, and it's the constant theme so far. So let's see what happens in the future. But I do agree. I don't think we were our best today, if that's what you're referring to. But do we not deserve to win it? Well, maybe people say it was even Stevens, but I feel like Liverpool showed their quality in the end, and that's what counts. It's not. you don't win football matches just because you've played the better football or you've had the most possession. That's not how football works. We should know that as a Liverpool fan base. So for me, they showed grit, they showed aggression, they showed energy and hard work, but they didn't hit the ball in the back of the net, until the latter stages of the game. So, football is a two-way street in terms of what what you see and how you view the game. For me, Liverpool did what they had to do. They produced the end product, and maybe I want to say the winning goal was lucky because it wasn't. It was a great team goal, probably the best piece of play throughout the whole game, and it took a young kid to score that goal. So let's not take any credit away from him. You know, it's not his fault Liverpool were below their standards. He did what he had to do. He was brought on to have an impact, and that's exactly what he did. So let's not deny the young kid there. If Liverpool didn't play well, that's a fair assessment because I'm going to do a player rating, so you'll see, you know, who I think performed well and who didn't. But end of the day, Liverpool won. That's the most important thing. Whether you play good or not, end of the day, the scoreline is what matters, and that is what it is. It's 3-2. So yeah, Liverpool were victorious today. Lucy says, Oz, please ask Stuart to call in. I don't know if he's online, to be fair. He hasn't commented, so he knows where the link is. If he wants to call in, he's welcome to call in. I'll big up yourself to this, Steve. Brazy, big up Brazy says, if 11 beat 11, we would have lost. Uh, Potentially, but we scored the goal before Gordon was sent off. And the second goal that we scored, I think we just caught them off guard. So for me, the 2-0 would have been fine in either situation. But they performed better than us in the second half, as in they played like they had 11 men. So for me, it's more of, what sort of attitude you have, what kind of energy you present on the pitch. And Liverpool just weren't quite there. Giving the ball away a lot, which is not good. We weren't able to string a lot of passes. So that's something we have to work as a collective. And one thing I have to say out loud, we have a lot of new players in our team. I'm not saying that as an excuse, but it's going to take time for everything to gel. And that might be a mistake on our own part where we've done too much in one window. We've sold a lot of players, but we've also brought in a lot as well. And when you're champions, that's not normally how it works. It's normally where you add to your squad. But Liverpool kind of went for a mini revamp and they literally just switched it up a little bit. But, I still feel like we'll have a few more incomings. So let's see, if that occurs. But yeah, 11-11, I don't know. I feel like we scored our goals before, well, the first one was before Gordon got sent off, and then second half, I think we just literally took them by surprise. And so much so, our own coach didn't even watch the goal live. So, that's how it goes sometimes. Bray said Konate is a major liability. It is a concern. I'm not going to crash out and say, "Oh, he's awful, selling, blah blah blah." I'm not one of those fans. That's not really how I move. So for me, he has been awful. He's been awful today. He was awful last week as well. He needs to fix up. He really does. If we were to sign a specific defender from Crystal Palace, his position in the team has to be questioned. So he's got to sort it out. And I don't know if it's the rumors surrounding the Real Madrid transfer or his contract situation. Something seems a bit off. He's not fully focused. He's not quite there yet because in preseason he seemed fine, but all of a sudden it's just a bit like he's not fully there, if that makes sense. So he needs to switch it up. Otherwise, his position in the team is going to be under fire, and that's just how it goes in football. Ozan Kabak says, Ozzie, it appears that Saudi PIF is determined not to let Isak leave. I've forgotten the gentleman's name now, but they showed the two owners, and I think one of the owners, something Ruben, I think his name was, apparently went over to Isak's house to have a meeting with him about his future. Whether those talks were successful, we'll probably never know. Well, we will, I guess, to an extent, if Isak joins Liverpool. But yeah, they're determined because it's a pride thing. It's a thing where they're very wealthy. So for them to lose their star player in the way it's happening, because a bigger team in terms of football terms is trying to take your man. It's something they can't accept. So they're trying to do everything in their power to keep Isak on board, whether that's offering him new contracts or new salaries and all this sort of stuff. It doesn't seem to be working. So he's got his head pretty much, you know, s- you know, screwed on to join Liverpool. Whether it happens or not, it remains to be seen. I'm going to be very adamant. I'm going to keep my same stance and say that Isak will be a red by the end of this window. So hopefully by next week. But I see some fans, I've just got Ozzie come back below saying, I don't think the transfer will happen. I know a lot of fans, their viewpoint has changed a little bit. They're not feeling as confident. I always felt like once this game concludes, we'll get a bit of a bigger picture in terms of what's going to happen next. Maybe we'll get some development tomorrow or Wednesday. I think by Wednesday we should know if Liverpool are going to place a bid or not. I think we will place that bid in the end, and I think it will be accepted. That's just my prediction. Now, in terms of the fee, I'm not going along the notion that it's going to be 150 million. I don't think it's going to be that high. I'm thinking it's going to be around 130. I think that's what's going to seal the deal. Whether it happens or not, only time will tell. But my inkling is that Liverpool will make that bid and we will get the player by the end of the window. So let's see what happens. Wade, pick up Wade. He says, if Gomez is fit enough by Sunday, I'll start him ahead of Ibu. Yeah, hey. Um, I just don't want to take any risk on Joe Gomez because he's just come back from injury and it was an Achilles issue. And those kind of injuries, I don't even know how severe it was because he was out for about 2, 3 weeks. But with Achilles injuries, it's not, it doesn't seem like a quick fix, those type of injuries. So even if it was a minor one, you have to be very careful to how you manage that player. And we already know his track record. Unfortunately, he's suffered quite a few big injuries over the years. And due to that, I don't want to risk him unless we really, really have to. But I understand your point as well at the same time because Kanate has been woeful. Let's not sugarcoat it any less. He's not been great, and it is a concern. We've signed Leone, the young Italian centre back, but I wouldn't throw him in the mix so soon. I feel like he needs to get used to training, get used to the way of playing, especially in the English game. It's going to be a slight culture shock for him because he's still young, so he's quite quick. So he should be a bit more adaptable in comparison to Chiesa. Of course, Chiesa is Italian, came from Serie A, but he's at a different stage of his career where he's probably used to playing a certain way, whereas Leone's 18. He can be molded into a top defender that is equal to playing in the Premier League. So whether he gets this opportunity soon remains to be seen. But I'm really hoping that Liverpool secure that deal for Mark Gay. That's the thing that we need to try and get done as soon as possible. It might even have to be priority over the Isak deal. There's no reason why we can't do both deals at the same time because we've done it before. Other clubs do it, so why can't it be done? On the same period of time. So I hope we do get Mark Gay because it's 100% we need another centre back because we don't know if this is a dip in form or if is this going to be Konate throughout the season. And I don't think it will be, if I'm being brutally honest with you guys. But you never know. I don't know if his mind has been head like it's changed and it's headed towards Real Madrid. Like I don't know what the issue is with him right now. Um, it's very strange, but I'm sure we'll get some sort of clarity in the next few days. But what Liverpool need to do, we can't rely on his sort of form right now. We have to make sure we have enough and adequate quality players to rotate if players aren't delivering. So it needs to be done, and it's a priority for the end of this window. Browse, big up yourself. He says we won. Who cares? Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. He says free Isak. All day, every day until he comes through the door. Stefan Mine, big up yourself, Stefan. He says you ain't getting Isak now. Why? Because we beat Newcastle. I don't think that was a defining factor. Um, if Newcastle had one, I don't think you know it would change the narrative. It is it's a Premier League game. It's a one-off game. Uh, of course, I wasn't envisioning a bid before the game because that would have been a bit crazy to do that. Now I'm expecting Liverpool to strengthen their interest further by placing an official bid, and I think we'll get the player in the end, but only time will tell. Delirious Steve said, "Bun Isak, get me gay. I want both. Uh, Call me greedy. I want both. It has to be gay and Isak for me." So Steven says, "No way the team will sell to you." We'll have to wait and see. I know they're doing everything in their power to keep the player, but when you've got a player like Isak who's disgruntled, he doesn't want to be there. Promises have been broken. The relationship is destroyed. Bridges have been burnt. So why would he want to stay? It doesn't make sense for Newcastle to keep him either. If that is his current sort of thinking and morale right now, he's not going to play the way he's playing over the last 2 3 years. He's going to be disgruntled. He's not going to be fully focused, and that's going to impact his game. And what happens after that is that his valuation reduces as well. So if they don't sell him now to Liverpool, Liverpool will be in for him in January. Let's not kill ourselves. He will definitely be targeted in January. And if not, it will be next summer. But he will be targeted by Liverpool at some point. So for me, the best thing for Newcastle to do is take that money into the what Liverpool are going to offer and use it onto the squad. Because they do need to add a few more additions, especially if they want to progress in the Champions League and other cup competitions. Because right now they're, slightly short in some areas, and they could probably bolster certain departments. But I feel like, financially and from a footballing point of view, it makes sense to sell Isak. Nothing's going to come out of having a really peed off player in your squad. It affects the morale of the whole squad. That kind of negative attitude from one individual rubs the wrong way, and it can impact the harmony of that whole squad as well. So let's see what happens. We'll get a clearer answer later this week, and it'll be finalized by Monday. So let's see what happens there. Cybra says, I concur on a defender. Yeah, 100%. Stefan says, Liverpool have acted like a small club during this whole ordeal. How have Liverpool acted like a small club? Give me a bit more context, because if you're saying, Liverpool have been acting like a small club because we were respectful, where we haven't, made bids left, right, and centre, not like what Newcastle did last year, trying to sign Mark Gay. Would that be regarded as a big club move where you keep making bids and you're unsettling a player? We haven't done that. So we've done it the ethical way, where we've spoken to Newcastle and said, look, we're interested in your player. Are you open to doing business? They didn't say yes, and they never said no. We said that, look, we would be willing to offer this in terms of 110 million plus add-ons. Is that something of interest? And they didn't decline it. Even a statement that they released last week in response to Isak's social media post, there wasn't a line to say that we're not selling him, he's not for sale, he's indispensable, nothing along those lines. They've just said that, oh, conditions haven't been met. So that means that leaves the door to be open. So I disagree. I don't think Liverpool have acted like a small club. I think we've been respectable to Newcastle, because you want to maintain relations with these sort of clubs. There's a couple of players that we've been linked with in Newcastle as well, not just Isak. So I don't think Liverpool want to burn the bridges, because it could affect potential business in years to come as well. So no, I disagree. I don't think we've acted like a small club. I think we've been respectable. Um, of course, the problems between Isak and the club, that's an internal problem. That's not something that's been presented by Liverpool. That's not something we've forced on him. He's said it verbally that he's not happy in terms of the relationship there. He was given promises to leave the club, and it hasn't been fulfilled. So it's got nothing to do with us. We've not said to Isak, oh, do this, do that. Because if it was Liverpool's angle to influence that whole situation, we would have said to him, hand in that official transfer request, and then that's when we'll come in. We haven't done that. So I'm not sure into the what angle you're thinking that Liverpool have acted like a small club, but I strongly disagree. Delirious Steve says, a centre back is more important than Isak Oz. Ekitike can lead the line. I agree. At this stage, it would appear that a centre back is more important than Isak. But for me, we can't rely on Ekitike. Touch wood. What if Ekitike picks up an injury? What do we do then? Because Chiesa coming on as a striker today, as much as I rate the guy, it didn't bode me with a lot of confidence. We don't have another option. Gakpo could play there, but is he going to be as effective? I don't know. If we had Diaz, then of course, then you wouldn't have too much of an issue because Diaz can do that role. So that's why a lot of fans are saying maybe we shouldn't have sold Luis Diaz in the end because he's scored on his debut for Bayern Munich on last weekend. But look, I want both. I think they're both just as important. If I'm being honest with you, uh, the game one seems more important because of Konate's recent performances. But in terms of numbers, we don't have another striker. We don't have a backup striker. In defense, we've got Virgil, Konate, Leone, Gomez. So on paper, we've got four centre backs. Whether you think one player is ready or not, or one player is available or not, it doesn't make a difference. It's still four centre backs. We don't have two strikers in our squad. We've only got one striker. Other players, of course, can play in that role, but we don't have a like for like replacement for Ekitike. And we can't overuse him this season. So it's very important that we do sign a striker. Now, if we don't get Isak, because we have to think about that situation as well, do we have an alternative target? I don't think we do. I think what Liverpool might end up doing is they end up signing a versatile forward that can play as a winger or can play as a striker. Who that guy is, I'm not too sure. My choice would be Barcola, as you guys will probably know, but I don't think he's available. I don't think he's a realistic target at this stage. Rodrigo is someone that's available. I'm not convinced about Rodrigo, if I'm being honest with you. So that's why I feel like Liverpool need to go all out. They need to be aggressive and place that bid that will get accepted by Newcastle and try and do everything in their power to get Isak to Anfield. So that's why I feel like the Isak deal is very, very important. And I feel like the Gay one is just as important, but I feel like it's probably a bit more smoother process to get that done, or rather than the Isak one. With Newcastle involved. Whereas Palace, if they hold out, then they're not going to get any money for Gabe because he definitely wants to leave the club. So let's see. I'm praying and hoping that we get both players by next week. So fingers crossed that we do. Cybra says, really, we are champions. Need Frimpong back. We do. Yeah, we definitely really everyone whoever's not available, we want everyone back. So no, I definitely agree. Um Ozzie come out said at least Connor got some minutes. He did. I wasn't overly impressed, with his performance. I feel like there were times where he made good runs, but ended up running into a brick wall at times. Um, but good to see that he's fit and ready. So he should be an option for us in our upcoming fixture against Arsenal. So it doesn't get any easier this week for us. Peter says 11 divided by the ref. The ref was awful today, honestly. Um, the first half we were playing against 12 men. That's what I felt like. Every decision went to Newcastle. And I think it was basically, and I'm not going to say, oh, he's on their side or whatnot. It's because of the atmosphere. When you've got an electric and intense atmosphere like it was at St. James's Park, any foul that happens, the crowd are onto you. And because of that, he felt that pressure. So he gave away a lot of fouls. Liverpool got silly yellow cards when it shouldn't have been silly, should have been any yellow cards whatsoever. And then the funny thing for me was that when he had to announce the red card, he had to take a few deep breaths before he had to, present it to everyone because now he's marked up. So he has to communicate to the whole stadium. So um, I'm just thankful that, he gave, Gordon a red card because referees have bottled those kind of decisions in the past. So, you can't beat around the bush and say, oh, it's an obvious red, so we should get a red card for it. Sometimes it hasn't gone our way in the past. So yeah, referee tried to play a part, but second half it seemed a bit more of a neutral game in the end. But yeah, it wasn't very pleased in terms of the officiating in the opening sort of 30, 40 minutes. Cybra says, hey man, Ekitike is good. Yeah, oh, he's a top quality player, of course. Drew Steve says, Salty Jordan in the chat injected. uh, Cybra says, we will have him. What happened to Rodrigo? The Rodrigo one, I don't know what's going on, to be honest with you. Like, I saw a clip yesterday where he got substituted and he was venting out his frustration, sorry, um, and being put on the bench. So that created the narrative that, oh, he's annoyed and he wants to leave and blah blah blah. He has been linked to a move to Liverpool and Man City, and at some point it was Arsenal as well. I don't know if it's an option. They do want to sell him, so I think it's become a bit more obvious that it has, changed a little bit in terms of his situation. Where at first I thought maybe he'd want to stay and give it one more try, but they seem to be like, "No, you need to, you need to get out of it. We're not interested anymore." Um, but I don't know with the Rodrigo one. Let me know in the chat if Rodrigo would be the type of player you want at the club. And it sounds silly for me to say that out loud, but I just don't know if he's the right fit for Liverpool in terms of playing style. But of course, even him, throwing tantrums by getting substitute, that doesn't bode well with me either. Like he's got a bit of an attitude or he's got a bit of an ego about him. So you have to always sign players that will fit into the ethos of the club. I don't know about that. So I don't know. We'll see. You know if there's any truth to the rumors that Liverpool are linked with him. Some have said that he could be an alternative to Isak. Who knows? Let's see. I'd rather get Isak all day long, but let's see what happens. Deleuze Steve says we made it to 38 minutes until us. Shamakala. Look, normally it's like 10, 15 minutes, and especially when we're doing transfer shows. Uh, I had to mention, come on now, that's my guy. So yeah, I had to mention him at some point. Cyber said it was a red. Oh, 100%. Never in doubt. If you think it isn't, there's definitely bias. Glass is being worn because, yeah, for me, it's not even a debate, if I'm being honest with you. Ozzy come back to if it happened to a Newcastle player, they would 100% want a red card for that rash and late tackle. The thing is, if Liverpool, if one of our players did that, you can't be like, oh, that's not a foul. It's clearly obvious it's a foul. So I think us Liverpool fans will be honest to say, yeah, it's a red. You can't get away with that. We got away with a couple moments as well, but I remember Verts, hitting someone in the face. I think it was Tonali as well. So these things happen, but that was a definite intent of being a sort of a malicious sort of challenge on Van Dijk. So whether it's deliberate on his part or not, he'll sugarcoat it and say no, it wasn't. But you can't go in behind as well and then studs up on his calf and clatter him in that way. For me, obvious red card. So yeah. Sidebrows has asked why does Xavi not like him? Not entirely sure into the why he doesn't like him. It might be in terms of his playing style. It doesn't fit into his philosophy either, because Rodrigo's been quite vocal. Um, he wants to be a left winger. I think he's had enough of being utilized as a squad player where he fits in certain positions here and there. At Real Madrid, he's predominantly used as a right winger. Now he's like, I don't want to play right wing. I only want to play left wing. So that's a bit disruptive to a coach's plans, because sometimes certain players, if they are effective in different positions, you're going to utilize them. Like suppose I played right back today. I don't see him, throwing a bit of a issue in terms of him playing out of position. And something out of position, he's playing in a different department, playing defense. So you want to have players that are always committed to the cause, and that might be one of the reasons why he doesn't like the player's attitude or his input in terms of what he does on the pitch, but also his personality might not fit into his way of doing things. So it could be a combination of quite a few things. So yeah, let's see what happens with him. I don't know what's going to happen. I made a prediction a few weeks ago that I think he'll stay at Real Madrid. You've got the likes of Tottenham that want to sign, but Tottenham keep getting hijacked. Even today, I don't know if anyone's aware. Arsenal want to sign Hincapie from Bayer Leverkusen, and apparently they made an offer, and now Arsenal are hijacking Tottenham's offer as well. So a lot of hijacking going on from Arsenal's point of view. But yeah, in terms of Rodrigo, it's not even a clear pathway that it would be Liverpool. I think Man City would definitely challenge Liverpool for his signature because they have a vacant space on that left wing position. Um, Arsenal, I would have said possibly, but now because they've got Eze, they've got the man that's going to unlock the doors for the likes of Eucharist and their team, I think it's a very good signing for them. So I think they've done the right move there. Tottenham, they of course sold Heung-min Son, so they have a vacant space there. But whether he wants to join Tottenham, I don't think he will. I think when the rumors were presented a few weeks ago, his agency or his reps dismissed it straight away, saying, "Oh, Tottenham's on not an option because we want to move to a bigger club that challenges for major honours." So let's see what happens with Rodrigo. But I mean, Xavi Alonso just probably doesn't, trust him or doesn't see him as a viable option. Maybe he's got plans to sign someone else in the future, or he doesn't see him fit into his way of playing football. So yeah, we'll see. I think if he stays, then we'll get an idea in terms of how he fits into that Real Madrid team during the season. But if he's on the bench and doesn't get to play, clearly there's an issue between the coach and the player. Delusive said, "Don't worry, Oz. Barcola will be a Liverpool player in 2027. That's all right. I'm all for that. I'm all for that at all. When I said to Winger's contract expires, if that's a reference to Salah, I hope not, because Barcola's not the same type of player. Barcola's a left winger. There's only one player I want for Salah, and that's Michael Olise. That's the only name I have in my mind. That's the guy that I want to replace Salah in the team. So, hopefully, if you believe the rumors, maybe a bid could happen next year because he's got a release clause that's activated from next summer. So maybe we get him a year early. Get Salah to show him the ropes, and then hopefully we have a long-term successor already in the squad. Sarah says, how should we unlock Rio? Firstly, I don't think we should put too much pressure on the kid. We have to let him play his game, play his natural game. Um, I've said this a few times. I think, of course, today we'll feel like, oh, he's ready. He's come on, he's scored a winning goal. I get it, but I don't want there to be too much pressure on him. Where if he has one or two bad performances, our fan base isn't generally like that. But let's say they are, and they get on his back, it could affect his confidence in the long term. So I think the best thing to do is utilize him in different sort of scenarios. So right now we don't have enough attackers, so that's why he's on the bench. But if we had a striker or we had another winger, then he wouldn't be selected. So for me, the best thing to do for his development is have him in and out the team. So use him for the cup games. So the Carabao Cup games I think, is going to be happening in the next few weeks. So get him involved in that. The FA Cup draw when that happens in the start of the year, get him involved in that as well. And then if there's certain Champions League games where we've got slightly lower leveled opposition and we've got a big Premier League game on the weekend, maybe use him in those games. So just use him a bit more sparingly in a more strategic way where, we don't need to play him too much right now. Because then if you play him every game, you might, unfortunately, he might get burnt out and that could affect his longevity in his whole career. So I think the best thing to do is let him play bits and bobs from here to Jan. And then when Salah goes to AFCON, I think he is added to our first team squad and could be a viable option for the second part of the season. That's what I've envisioned in my mind. Let's see what happens. Rio's almost, threw the script away there by scoring a winner today. But I do think Liverpool need to be a little bit more careful and manage his minutes and manage his development closely. And I think from when I heard Arne start talking about him, I do get that sense because I don't think he wants to rush him so soon. But of course, when he produces moments like that, the talent is undeniable. So if he continues to move that way, he will definitely be in the forefront of the first team. But I think we just need to hit the brakes and not put too much pressure on the kid. He's not even 17 yet, so we have to let him develop in terms of his footballing ability, but in terms of growth as well. He's still a growing kid, so he needs to, you know, make sure that he's, you know, fully ready for the first team where it doesn't impact his body in the long term. So yeah, we have to be very careful in how we manage Rio going forward. Cyber said he's clearly wanting to win for us. Yeah, he is 100%. Um, Okay, what we'll do now is we will present the player ratings, and yeah, feel free to let me know in the chat, your scores as well. Our scores might differ, but it sparks a debate amongst us. So yeah, Let's start with the goalkeeper. Now let's start with Allison. I thought Allison was really good today. In the first half, he was very dominant, made some crucial blocks and saves. Not saves, like there wasn't any not sort of like shots on goal where he had to, produce, worldy saves, but even if it was low crosses, he was very quick to react. There was times when they applied through balls, he was off his line very quickly. So his reading of the game was really good, and in terms of aerial situations, he punched the ball well at times. There was that one moment where they had a direct corner kick. I thought a second, I thought, oh shoot, that might go in, but he punched it. And there's one time where he literally just punched it one handed like he was thumping someone in the head or something. But no, for me, a very very assertive performance from the Brazilian goalkeeper. The only sort of question mark I would have would be regarding the goal from Bruno Guimaraes, the header. I think maybe he could have done a bit better there, but I might be a little bit harsh with my assessment. But overall, I thought he produced a strong performance, so I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10. So Bosley, I'll be honest, I didn't want him starting at right back because I thought he would be more effective in the middle of the park, and that's why in my match preview I had gone for Curtis Jones to be the right back in this fixture. But the way Szoboszlai played today, I see why Slot starting him. He was immense today. Honestly, and I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, he's the future right back. I don't agree with that notion one bit. I don't think he is a right back. But what today presents is that if we need if we need someone to come in as an emergency, uh, then we have someone that can do that. So he impressed me in so many ways today. His passing was good. He wasn't wasteful in position. Sometimes when he plays in that double pivot, he's been very wasteful, and especially in the last 2, 3 games. Today, very good on the ball, pressing down that flank and on the right times. He wasn't overcommitted. So for me, that's very calculated play there from Szoboszlai. Good passing, so Salah on that right hand side as well, and then being able to play right back in one phase, and then playing a double pivot in one phase, and then play as a advanced number 10 in another phase. He played in 2, 3 positions today. I was effective in all of those 3 positions. So for me, he was fantastic today. He really was. And the goal, the winning goal, it came from him. And I know Salah provided the assist. It was his final pass. But with some players, when they receive the ball like that, what they will do is they'll have a quick first touch on the turn and then shoot first time because they don't have that awareness. But Szoboszlai read that to the T. He had eyes behind his back. He had the full picture there. He knew that Rio was behind him. So to apply that dummy and give Rio the platform to hit the ball however he wanted to do, for me, was a fantastic moment there. So uh, I thought he was really good today. I'm trying to. Do you know what? Call me excited. I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. I thought he was phenomenal today. I can't think of any area of which I felt like he was a weak point at all. I thought he was really, really good. So yeah, I'm gonna give him a 10 out of 10. I'm just gonna go through some of the comments. Tudor Sabol put in a tremendous shift at right back and midfield. Totally agree with you there, Steve. Uh, S- Cyber says, yeah, Sabol created today. Dude, he was a great Sabol at 8. 8 is fair as well, but I thought because he played, if it was just right back, then I'd probably give like an 8 or 9. But because he played in other areas and he dummied it for Rio to get that winner, for me, it was a complete performance where remember he's not a right back, so it was a makeshift position. And funny enough, I didn't feel like we were in trouble on that side of the pitch. Harvey Barnes, I'll be honest with you, I barely remember him attacking Sabozan. And I thought, oh shoot, they're gonna get onto us or something like that. Their creativity came from the other flank. So I never felt like, he was a weak area, which, a weak point. because when we did the match preview, we always thought that was going to be our area of concern. It wasn't. And it's down to suppose that his energy, his tenacity, his understanding of the game, his reading of the game, because he wasn't just pinging balls for the sake of it. He knew what passes to apply and when to go a bit more further up. So it's good to know we've got a player that can come in there on an emergency basis. But for me, midfield is his role. That's the way he needs to play, or even more advanced, where maybe on occasion plays on the flanks, because I think that is something he can do as well. But all I know is it's a great player to have in the squad, and I feel like he is definitely underrated by some, disrespected by some as well. But for me, a fantastic player. So for me, a 10 out of 10 performance. Now let's move on. Let's speak about Ibu Konate. Poor performance today. I'm trying to think of positives. Last week against Bournemouth, he had an awful start, but in the second half, he produced a lot of blocks. I don't even think he was up to that kind of notion in this game. He was quite poor throughout, and dare I say, it, Van Dijk carried him throughout that whole game. He wasn't strong in the tackle. Gave the ball away in very tricky situations, especially in the first half where it led to two or three counter attacks. No, he was virtually not there, and it, it felt like we had 10 minutes in the second half because of Konate. And I don't want to be harsh because that is actually one of my favorite defenders in the team. But no, he was poor. Um, so for me, I'll give him a three. Maybe I'm being nice for that event. I'm gonna give him a 3 out of 10. Let's speak about his partner in crime there, in Virgil van Dijk. He was immense. He honestly was. As the game went on, he got better and better. Like, I know we conceded two, but I don't think it was because of Van Dijk. It was because of defending from Konate for the Gomez goal. Not the Gomez goal. The Gomez goal was Kerkez's fault, but the Osula goal, that was definitely Konate not reading the ball and ground, but maybe he should have done better in his defending there. Um, but Van Dijk was absolutely what's the word should I describe? He was a colossal today. Like he was just a formidable force. They couldn't get around him. They really tried. And I feel like as the game went on, he was literally blocking every header, like really, really dominating the air. So for me, I don't know because of the win of the emotions, I'm gonna give another 10. For me, Van Dijk, because I'm thinking, what did Van Dijk do wrong? I don't think he did anything wrong. So for me, he gets a 10 out of 10. So a lot of tens so far. I normally don't have too many tens in my lineup, but suppose that considering he was a makeshift right back was spectacular today. And Van Dijk was Van Dijk. He was the rock in our defense. So for me, he has to get. There's no area that I feel like he let us down. Passing was good. Dominance was good. His leadership, he was telling players, when to move forward. Like he got frustrated with a couple of them. I think it was Gravenberg where he made the pass, but it wasn't the right pass. So very vocal, and he just tried to make sure Liverpool kept their shape. So yeah, for me, 10 out of 10. Turkez, another poor performance from the Hungarian left back. This time around, if he wasn't erratic, he wasn't doing crazy slide tackles. I think that was just because it was his former club last week, and he's trying to prove a point that this is why I play for Liverpool now. So he's just a bit too overheated in that kind of scenario. Today, Alanga got the best of him on a few occasions. Um, the second goal, 100% his mistake. But I will give him some sort of positive words. After that, he did show a better attitude where he was making a few more blocks. He didn't give me confidence in those duels, but if you're making those blocks and it's not leading to anything, then you gotta give him some sort of advantage in that way. So for me, I think he was just probably slightly better than Ibu. So I'm going to give him a 4 out of 10. Just going to go through some of the comments here. LFC20, big up yourself. He says Ibu should be dropped. He should be, but who can we replace him with? I wouldn't replace him with Gomez or Leone right now. So if miraculously Mark Gay joins tomorrow, then yep, he's my defender for Arsenal this Sunday. Uh, Cybra said, do you think Konate's eyes turn to Reem? I don't know. I don't know what's happened to. It could be. It could be. Because that's the feeling I got last week against Bournemouth, where there was a lot of speculation around Real Madrid. Apparently, they've got a vacant spot to register one more player before the window closes. So I thought, maybe they have some sort of slight hope that he could join earlier than planned if Liverpool are willing to do business. Or is it the mounting pressure of actually, facing competition now? He's got a young centre back in Leone who looks amazing for his age. He could be the next big thing. So that's pressure there. But also the talk of Mark Gay at the time before the Bournemouth game seems to have escalated where it felt like a deal was bound to happen very soon. Of course, it hasn't, but I'm hoping it will. But at that time, maybe he felt the pressure that they're signing so many centre backs. My position's under fire right now. But if that's how he's reacting, that's a bit of a concern as well. So don't know what it is. I really don't. I'm just gonna give him the benefit of that. It's just poor form right now because it's very early in the season. But he needs to do better. He really does. Delisa says, what's going on with Uberman? Mentally, he ain't there. He's not. I just don't know what to pinpoint right now. Um, I'm hoping that once the window closes and Liverpool have done their business and he's still at the club, it closes the door for that kind of uncertainty in his mind. And then all he needs to do is focus on his football. Look, in terms of the contract, from what we hear, a contract has been presented. If it's not good enough for him, then let his reps do the talking behind the scenes. But you need to focus on your football now because if you're not performing, you might not get that move in the end, if that makes sense. I'm not trying to push you to Real Madrid, but I'm saying, in Liverpool, you might be down the pecking order. But if you're down the pecking order and you're not playing, how are you going to get that move to Real Madrid? Does that make sense? So for me, it doesn't benefit him playing this way in any scenario. So he needs to step it up now. If he's regarded as one of the best centre backs, which I believe he is, he needs to show it. He's not shown it in the last two games, so he needs to do a lot better. LS20 say contract stage, yeah, could be the contract situation, but he needs to kind of, once the window closes, I'm hoping, it's out of his hair, and he's like, let me just focus on football. That's what I want from Konate. I want a better attitude going forward. Cyber said he was kind. He was even kind to Gordon. Yeah, Gordon had a great time because he got a lot of the ball, and Gordon. We had D-Man on the channel the other day. Big up to D-Man. He's a Newcastle fan. He wasn't convinced of seeing uh, Gordon in the first nine, but Konate, due to his poor form, let him have a lot of the ball, and unfortunately, it went to their advantage to an extent. Of course, before that red card, but yeah, that red card probably saved it because I probably would have given him one, if it continued that way because he was really bad. Uh, okay, let's move on to the double pivot. Let's start with Gravenberch. Good to see him back, firstly. He has been solely missed by the team because we didn't really have a defensive-minded player in that double pivot. Today he showed us, and you know what? Even in terms of the goal, for me, he had the vision, he had the idea to even produce that moment because most players would have just played it sideways or gone back, especially when they're a defensive-minded player and they normally don't shoot in front of goal. But he's like, "Do you know what? There seems to be an opening here. Let me try my luck because right now we're not really having shots on goal." And I got a slight deflection off I think Fabian Shaw, and then it hit the post, and then but they all count. It was on target, and that definitely gave us that sense that we can go on and win this game. So that came from Gravenberch. But even, from of course scoring the goal, but even the final goal, it was his pass on the right towards the right-hand side that created that move for him because it was the pass that was given to him initially, it wasn't a great ball, but he had to stretch and hit it with the right power to find. I think it was Bradley, and then Bradley passes to Salah, and Salah through to Szoboszlai, and Szoboszlai dumbing it for Rio. So I feel like, that's coming from ground. But if he didn't stretch and make that pass, that move doesn't happen. So for me, he had a very, very solid game. So a really good team back, and hopefully he stays in the team for longer. So for me, he gets a solid 8 out of 10. Jones, let me know chat what you think about Jones. I just don't think he was involved today. Like in the first half, barely got onto the ball. I didn't see any effect in his game. In the second half, I remember having one moment where we were on the counter. He got past, I think it was Ramirez, with a nice sort of silky skill there, driving the ball, and then he needed to thread the through ball to Ekitike, but overplayed it, delayed it, and then eventually, I think in the back of my mind, he knew he had to pass it to Ekitike, but by that time, that move had gone. So decision making wasn't the best, in my opinion, from an attacking point of view. In terms of general play, I thought he was quite average. I don't think he was effective in the game. Uh, so for me, I'm gonna give him. I'll give him a 5 out of 10. I don't think he was great. I thought he was very average today, if I'm being honest with you. Let's go to Florian Wirtz. Um, Last week I was defending him because I thought he actually performed all right. Of course, had a few moments where he lost the ball against Bournemouth, and you know hasn't quite come to terms with the physicality of the league. But today I thought he was a lot worse in comparison to last week. I feel like there were times where he got nudged off the ball too many times, took too long to release the ball. Passing wasn't great, wasn't as silky, as we've seen him in the last few weeks. So for me, very, very poor performance from Verts from his standards. Uh, so in terms of Verts, I'm actually going for a 4 out of 10. I'm just gonna go through some of the chat here. Cyber said he was good today, bro. I reckon a 6 he could have done more. I think that's in reference to Jones. Yeah, I understand. That's why I'm giving him 5. I don't. For me, I couldn't justify a score higher than 5, but I think you'll realize that once I do the other scores, he was all right, but yeah, not as impactful. I thought this would have been the game where if he was impactful, could have put him in a great position to start against Arsenal. It wasn't the case today. Uh, Samuel is our expensive player. He'll come good. Just give him a bit of time. He will come good. Yeah, it's a new league. It's a new way of playing. He's going to take a bit of time, but once he does, and once it clicks, you'll see why. For me, he's one of the best players in that number 10 role. Now, Mohamed Salah. Funny enough, he was very, very quiet today. I don't think he was great at all, if I'm being brutally honest with you. Uh, Not effective. The only time he was effective is when he was producing passes with Szoboszlai on that right side. So built a good partnership there, but we already know that because they already have a great understanding with each other. Um, the final ball wasn't quite there today. Didn't really have a lot of shots. There was that one moment where I wanted him to shoot on a counter attack, end up going for a pass towards Ekitike, I think it was, but didn't have enough power. So it wasn't quite in his rhythm today, where he wasn't finding his range into the passing or making the right choice at the right time. So I felt like he was quite ineffective, and I feel like Livramento, defended very well against him. And when they had Lewis Hall defended well against him as well, so he didn't really trouble his fullback at all. So initially, when I was doing my ratings as the game was going on, I had him at a very low rate. But let's not, beat around the bush. He provided the assist for the winning goal. Yes, it's not a crazy pass or anything to that nature, but he was in a position to provide that low cross that gave us the 3 points. So that has to mean something for me. So I boosted his score a little bit. And I know, the assist is probably the only real contribution he gave. So I'm giving him a 5 out of 10. So let me know in the chat what you think. Is that too high? Feel free to let me know. Uh, LFC20 says Verts picked up some good positions in pockets of space, but no one passed to him. Yeah, but then I feel like he gave away the ball quite a lot as well. Didn't hold on to the ball at times, in my opinion, and there was times where he should have released it, and this took a bit long as well. So I still feel like he's trying to find his rhythm. Um, he'll get there. It will take a bit of time. Double D, big up Double D. He says if this doesn't make us do more defensive or midfield business, then I don't know what will. It's facts. Um, the defender one, 100%. Mark Gay has to be the one that comes through the door. The midfield one's interesting because I think we'll all agree to some extent that we need another midfielder. But I feel like the club have earmarked that as a summer signing for next year rather than this summer. If a player becomes available, could that be something we can do? Potentially. But I think we've done so much groundwork to try and sign Alexander Isak. We have to try and get that over the line. So let's see what happens. But we have to add another defender. It's a must. For me, we need to sign Isak as well. I'd love for us to get a midfielder. I don't think it will happen. Um, would we get another winger? I don't know. Like the extra attacker, I'm not as confident. I'm more confident about Gay and Isak. The third one, I'm not too sure. But I would love for it to be 3 signings by the end of the window. Only time will tell if that happens. LSC Train said the only thing Salah did was set up Rio. Yeah, I agree. That's why, because it was the winning goal, I had to boost up his score to 5. I think otherwise it would have been 4 or 3 even, because he wasn't effective at all in this game. So because of the assist and it was the winning goal, I boosted it up there a little bit. But yeah, let me know what your score is in regards to Salah. Cody Gakpo, ineffective. That's how I would describe him. I thought he was very ineffective today. Didn't really take on the fullback as much. Passing wasn't great, gave a ball away quite a few times. But having said all of that, he got 2 assists. So he provided the ball to Gravenberch to score that goal. He provided the ball to Ekatike inside the box. So I can't, give him a very low rating. Um, he's got 2 assists. You have to give him some sort of credit. I just don't think he was effective on the ball. Even with Rio's small cameo, I feel like he was a bit more effective than Gakpo. Gakpo at times isn't the most direct. And I feel like we need that type of winger where you're going to stretch the defense. And I don't think they did that enough. And then when he cut in, very predictable. I don't think his passing was on point at all today. So yeah, not a great performance. So in terms of his rating, it's going to be a bit. I think it's a bit high, but I'm just gonna try and explain. It's going to be 6, and that's because he provided 2 assists for the goals. Um, I think Verts at 4 is based on his performance. Salah is boosted probably by 1 or 2 scores, because I think he could have easily got a 3 out of 10 today, but because he provided the winning goal in the end, that's why I boosted it to 5. But I couldn't do more than 6 for either of those players. For me, it doesn't justify because they weren't effective at all. So because of 2 assists, Gakpo gets a 6 out of 10. Ekitike, another fantastic performance from our French striker. Really impressed with how he performed today. What I love about Ekitike's game is that even if his back is towards the goal, he's so good. He's so effective. Like once the goalkeeper boots the ball in the air, and he had to deal with the likes of Burn and Shaw, who are very powerful, very strong, very big centre backs. I didn't feel like it was a sort of like a lost battle. He won his duels. He was very aggressive towards them, and even when he attacked the channels, he was getting past players. He was troubling the fullbacks on occasions as well. Really, really good. His link up play was good today as well. The goal, nicely taken. Right power on that shot. didn't blaze it. It was a side-footed one with real precision. So for me, great performance. 3 and 3 got games there. Yeah, it's looking good. But I still think we need to sign another striker to strengthen the depth of our squad because if he was to, God forbid, pick up an injury, we don't have another adequate replacement for him. So for me, he gets an 8 out of 10. So that is my rating for the starting lineup there. Just got a comment here from Cyber. It says, is Gakpo a winger? He is. But of course, today he just wasn't effective. He wasn't attacking his fullback as much. Um, I don't feel like he was able to have any sort of impression towards our game. And I think that's why we weren't able to create much either, because nothing came from the flanks. Salah was pretty much getting handled by the fullbacks, let's be honest, in terms of Livramento and then Lewis Hall. And Trippier was very aggressive on Gakpo, especially in the first half as well. So for me, yeah, both of our wide players were ineffective. And that, of course, decreased the amount of creativity from the flanks as well. NFC 20 says Ekitike needs to play 90 minutes because when we sub him, we lose the lead because we miss his whole up play. You're right. It's facts. Is we do lose that focal point in our attack. But I think Ekitike, he's still finding his match fitness. He came to us where, he did a bit of preseason with Frankfurt and then came, midway through when we went to Asia. I still don't think he's fully fit right now. As in, not fully fit where he can't start games, but I just don't feel like he's quite at the level where he can play 90 minutes. I think that'll happen in the next few weeks. Um, but I'm hoping we have Isak as well through the door. So let's see what happens. But yeah, I do agree. We do miss that focal point when he leaves. And it is very noticeable in our team as well. So what I'll do now before we close the show, I will add some of the subs, even though a lot of them didn't have huge number of minutes under their belt, but we'll still add them anyway. So Florian Wirtz got replaced by Bradley. I'll put the players in their right positions very shortly as well. And then you've got Chiesa coming on for Ekitike. Chiesa. And then you've also got Elliot for Jones. And then you have Rio replacing Gakpo. I don't know if Rio's going to be in this one. Let's see if he is. No, he's not here. So, no. So what we'll do, just to... No, no, I don't want to put his face on there, actually. Hold on. Not real fair. No, that's an ugly sight there, isn't it? Who's in our team that doesn't have a face? Because that'll be the way to do it, I think. Okay, dance. And just change his name to Rio. There we go. God do it somehow, isn't it? And I, honestly, guys, I don't remember him even coming on. But when I was just checking, certain details before I started the show, Endo apparently made an appearance and replaced Salah. I kid you not, I don't remember Endo even coming on. But I'll put him on for presentation purposes. But I don't actually remember him doing anything. So let's start with... Okay, let me put the players in the right position. So we've got Supposedly over there. You're not playing more advanced. And then we'll swap these two guys. End up there and edit there. There we go. So let's start with Bradley. As I mentioned briefly earlier in the show, he showed good energy levels, made some good runs, bit indecisive in terms of the final pass or making the right pass at times. But of course, I'll give him the benefit of that he's not played too many games. So I feel like he did okay. Nothing, spectacular or anything like that. So in terms of his rating, I'm going to give him... I don't think he was the best. I'm going to give him a 4 out of 10. just because not a lot of impact made. Um, who's next? Chiesa. Chiesa had a difficult evening. Because let's be honest, he's good on the half turn where he's driving with the ball, but when the keeper's putting the ball in the air, he's not going to manhandle, burn, or any sentiments like that. Of course, today would have been a difficult one for any striker because Shaw and Dan Burn are a formidable centre back pairing, both very strong and physical. So it was always going to be a tough battle for Chiesa. He tried, to be fair, of course, played a part in the winning goal. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. So for me, he gets a 5 out of, excuse me, no, 4. He gets a 5 out of 10. And then who else do we have? Elliot came on. He, of course, played a part in the winning goal as well. Other than that, he didn't give me a lot of confidence because when he had the ball, he seemed a bit slow in receiving it and releasing the ball. There were times where, players literally, Newcastle players clashed into him. Lucky, because he didn't fall to ground, he didn't get a foul or anything to that nature. So he's got to be a bit more quicker in his sort of decision making there for me. So for Harvey Elliott, I'll give him a 5 as well. I think because he played a part in the winning goal, I'll give him that sort of advantage there. Rio Ngumoha, what an appearance from him. First professional performance for Liverpool, 16 years of age. First thing he does, he takes on 2, 3 players on the left wing. And I thought, yeah, this kid, he's fearless. He doesn't get overruled by an occasion. And I was so pleased with his performance. And the goal, yes, he's in the close enough to the penalty spot, but to have the confidence to hit it first time with that power against a keeper like Nick Pope, who's like 7 foot tall, God knows how tall he is. You have to give him credit. 16 years of age to do that on your debut in a last second of the game. A lot of players could have fumbled that moment. In those kind of situations where the ball's not completely flat on the ground, if your body sort of positioning isn't great or your back is too high, that's when you lift the ball over the bar. That could have easily have happened, but no, his head was down, tried to hit it low and hard, and produce a fantastic finish. So for me, guess 10 out of 10. How can I give him any other score? He can't get any other score. And he's my man of the match because he scored the winner. So you're probably thinking, why haven't I found anyone yet? He's my man of the match. So that's why. And the final player, Endo, I can't give Endo a score. I barely saw him on the pitch. So I can't even give him like a 5 out of 10, like a average score because he didn't touch the ball. So I'll just have to leave him blank for now. But at least he's there on the lineup, I guess. Um, but yeah, that is my player ratings. Just got a last comment here from Cyber. It's so cool. We have a wonder kid. Yeah, it is. It is cool. But we just gotta manage the expectations, not get you know, too excited, and we've got to keep him level grounded as well, which I'm sure the club will do. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you. Let's go from the top in terms of who's contributed. Thank you, Oz and Kabak. Thank you to Costalicious. Thank you to Still Steve. Shout out to Brazy. Shout out to Wade. Shout out to Cyber. Shout out to Stephen. Shout out to Peter. Shout out to LFC20. Shout out to Double D. Yeah, if I have forgotten, apologies. But yeah, shout out to everyone. Appreciate your engagement as always. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're new to the channel, just to let everyone know that there is a membership that I've started as well. So with the membership, I'll be doing exclusive content um, for you guys, probably at least once a month. So it'll be different sort of types of videos. So the last one we did was the best worst 11 in Liverpool's history. So that was a difficult plus slightly interesting one to do. And with the membership, you get certain perks. You get discount to Ozwrld.co.uk. So if you wanted to get yourself a Starboy Rio shirt, which I've launched today, you'll be able to get some discount. But if you just want to go and buy the shirt, a link should be tagged on the description after the show. But you can always just go to Ozwrld.co.uk and then find the shirt on the homepage. In terms of upcoming shows, I'll probably be doing a transfer show tomorrow. There will be a lot of talking points. I'm very much sure of it. There were a couple today, but nothing that was groundbreaking. So maybe we'll discuss that tomorrow. Plus any further developments in the race of signing Mark Gahey. Do we get a bomber in regards to Isak? Who knows? Only time will tell. But we'll definitely do a transfer show tomorrow. Um, I'll probably do a Premier League show as well. So it might be two shows. It might be one combined, where I speak about the game again in a little bit more detail, a bit more of a match breakdown. Plus, we'll also review or present what's happening in the Premier League in terms of our rivals. Arsenal have scored 5 goals and they're getting very giddy about it. So we'll talk about our rivals as well, and I will of course present the FPO Manager of the Week, which is something I'll do weekly. Um, so that will be the show tomorrow, and then another transfer show on Wednesday, and then Thursday we'll do a match preview of Liverpool versus Arsenal. So yeah, lots of content coming your way. Best thing to do is hit that notification bell so you know exactly what time I'm going live. Just got a couple comments here before we close the show. Liverpool 12th man, big up yourself as always. He said big up Oz. Good to see you, Liverpool 12th. I hope you're well. SSB 28 said big up yourself, SSB. I hope you're doing well as well. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to see you guys very, very soon. Goodbye.